welcome to Healthy Habits. I'm Aurora Light, and I'm going to bring to you today some information that is probably some information you might not be quite familiar with. We're going to talk today about hair analysis. Hair analysis as a tool for health screening and nutritional therapy. And I first became familiar with it probably about 20 years ago. And I had a lot of questions about it, and probably some of you people out there listening have questions about it. So we're going to have a guest today who is an expert on the subject. He's an MD. He's also, we might say, very holistic in his approach. I've known Dr. Larry Wilson for many years, and I find his approaches to problems with the body and stuff to be very, should I say, gentle. And instead of a lot of doctors you go to, they give you like all these intense things, that are really demanding on you to try and do to remedy problems. And sometimes, the solutions are more toxic than the problems. So that's what I've always trusted Dr. Larry Wilson in the past when I've talked to him about nutritional counseling and things of that nature. And he has a website. It's drlwilson.com. That's drlwilson.com. And he's going to be our guest today. So those of you who would like to email us questions for Dr. Larry, would like to contact him through his website directly, we are inviting you to do so. Dr. Larry, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you for having me, Aurora.
Now, tell us a little bit about, the history of hair analysis for people who may not be up to speed on it.
Okay. Well, first of all, it's a analysis for 22 minerals. Some labs test a few more than other labs. And the test has actually been around for, probably 100 years. But it wasn't used on people very much. It was used on soil testing. And it is the same test that farmers do to find out what their soil is missing and what it has too much of.
Oh, really?
Yep, same test that every farmer does.
Wow.
And it's done on animals a lot for environmental testing.
Oh.
You can find out if the animals have lead or mercury poisoning, if the animals are deficient in something. And so it's used for what's called biological monitoring. And then in the last 40 years, I'd say, maybe 30 to 40, the equipment has gotten much more accurate with computers, and it started to be used on people to find out what they're missing and what they have too much of in their bodies. So briefly, it uses something called an atomic spectrometer, or now they're using mass spectrometers, the latest technology.
Well, and, Dr. Larry, I've got a couple people here with me in the studio. One is Michael Elajan, who has the Cosmic Connection, and Gary Voss, who has the Progressive Technology Hour.
Hello and welcome, Dr. Larry.
Hi.
And, I saw Gary just nodding away when you were talking about the technology there involved in the analysis. How accurate would you say this technology is?
Well, we say plus or minus maybe 5%.
Wow.
Which is very good, actually.
Yes.
We're talking parts per million and sometimes parts per billion of metals. And that's better than most blood tests, just to give you a rough comparison.
Now, I heard that Jackie Kennedy, actually, her lymphatic cancer, I think that's what she had, was derived from her hair dyes, the metals, the heavy metals in her hair dyes, the browns and blacks.
They do find that women who use standard hair dyes, they definitely have more bladder cancer. And I don't know about other cancers, but it's true that I have lead in some dyes, and of course there are chemicals in dyes. Lead in hair dye is supposed to be banned. It is used in a couple men's hair dyes now, believe it or not.
Yeah, the Grecian formula and stuff.
Yeah, occasionally it shows up.
Yeah.
You can get all kinds of stuff from
But I hear the browns and the black commercials, hair dyes are the ones that are the most wicked with the heavy metals.
Yeah, the darker dyes, more likely to have that. There are a lot of products, believe it or not, you can get all this stuff.
So if you color your hair, Dr. Larry, and you get this test, is it going to be as accurate as if you don't?
Well, actually, it's a good test if you color your hair, or even on shampoos. I went over one this morning, and the zinc level was outrageous. And the only explanation is that the person is using Head & Shoulders shampoo every day, which is the dandruff shampoo.
And it probably has zinc oxide stuff in it, right?
Yeah, and so it doesn't ruin the test. It ruins that one number. You know, it elevates that, but that's good because then you know you need to stop using that product.
Yeah.
There's a product called Selsun Blue shampoo, and it makes the selenium really high. And you can get poisoned by products. And so, but for the most part, environmental contamination is not a problem with hair testing. It's one reason we use the hair. The hair test is a biopsy, basically, and you could use any tissue in the body. Hair is used because you don't have to hurt the person to get it.
Right.
And it's clean because most people wash their hair pretty frequently, you know, every day, every other day. It's actually, if their hair is very dirty, they should wash it within 24 to 48 hours before sampling, so that it is clean.
Yeah. Now,
and not use too many products on it right before they sample it.
Okay, so so when you use the hair coloring and it has the metals in it and stuff, that's not going to affect
that actually doesn't. Most hair dyes do not have metals in them.
Okay.
It's not. I didn't think it was legal to have any of them in it.
Okay.
So most hair dyes do not affect the test.
All right.
Bleaching and permanence do affect the hair structure, and you should wash the hair 4 or 5 times before you, after a permanent or bleach, before you do a hair analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, the less that's done to the hair, the better.
All right, so you prepare in that fashion, and then and you're tested for all these different minerals. What is most found as being way out of alignment for Americans?
Well, I'd say we detect a whole bunch of things. One is the metabolic type, and most Americans, adults, are what we call slow metabolizers.
Oh, yeah.
That means their adrenal glands and their thyroid glands are underactive.
Right.
And sluggish, and the people are tired, and that's probably number one constant finding, along with elevated copper levels, very common today. Worse among vegetarians because vegetarian proteins are very high in copper.
What proteins are those that are high in copper?
Things like nuts and seeds and beans and tofu and tempeh. And zinc sources, zinc balances copper, and zinc tends to be deficient today, are only found in meats. And so that's a common finding.
When you say meats, Larry, do you mean also poultry and turkey?
Poultry, turkey, eggs. Red meat is the highest, but it's found in all meats. Another common finding today is hidden aluminum, and maybe it's not hidden, sometimes it is, aluminum, iron, and manganese toxicity. Very
Primarily,
common.
what sources do they arrive from in our diet?
Well, manganese is found in gasoline. And so just, breathing car fumes and stuff.
Just being on the freeway.
Yeah. Another iron is found in white flour because they add it. It's enriched with iron. They advertise that, enriched with iron. The problem, what they don't tell you, is they take out all the other minerals out of white flour. So you absorb a lot of iron. Aluminum is found in many products, from aluminum cans, aluminum cookware, antiperspirants, antacids, aluminum foils that they cook food in.
Yeah, speaking of which, I noticed people in picnics sometimes in potlucks, they would put aluminum foil over the salad. It's a big no-no because the acids in there eat these little holes through the aluminum and go right in the food.
Yeah, aluminum, as you know, if you've ever handled aluminum foil, it rubs right off. You just have to touch it.
Really?
Yeah, I had this aluminum tape that they sell for heating ducts, and it just turns your fingers gray because it rubs.
That aluminum goes right into your body.
Yeah, and if you ever have aluminum cookware and if you stir it with a steel spoon, it scrapes the aluminum right off. Aluminum's very soft.
Ooh.
And of course, you never know in a restaurant with what kind of pots they're using.
You can guess most of the time they're aluminum.
They could be.
A lot of times I've noticed. You can walk through a restaurant. You can ask to have a tour of their kitchen before you dine there.
Yeah.
I've asked to see the people's kitchen before, and I'll tell you, I saw sauces sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a good sign.
Right. So those are some of the very common things. Now, in children, they're often fast metabolizers, which is why they race around. They can't stop. These ADD kids.
Yeah.
And they're and by the way, a slow oxidizer, slow metabolizer has high levels of calcium and magnesium in their tissues and low levels of sodium and potassium. And they often crave salt and they crave sugar and things like that. Fast metabolizers have low levels of calcium and magnesium, and they need lots of that. And we all start out as fast metabolizers, and as we go through life, we tend to slow down. That's sort of the progression of life. And so we try to balance that out, because if you're either too fast or too slow, your energy efficiency goes down. It's like pedaling a bicycle in the wrong gear.
That's right.
Or driving a car in the wrong gear, if you've ever done that.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't work very well.
Right, I can see that.
Yeah, and so your body's the same way. And so we try to balance that out. And then the body can start eliminating the poison metals. And by the way, another one that almost everybody has is mercury. It doesn't show up on the first test. It's often deeply buried. But mercury is spewed out. All fossil fuels contain mercury, so especially coal. And also a lot of industry uses mercury.
Now,
paper making.
Dr. Larry, people can contact you through your website, drlwilson.com, and they can contact you, and you can fix them up with a hair analysis just through the mail and by telephone, right?
Yes, we do it, and also I train practitioners around the country, and there's a referral list of people that I've trained, because most doctors don't know much about hair analysis, even the ones that offer it. My experience is they know very little. I studied for 14 years. I interned with a brilliant biochemist, and I've written several books and things, and many articles that are on the website. But most people who
yes,
use
you have quite an interesting background, and I hope everybody gets a chance to look up your website.
I believe that's also a method that a lot of drug testing uses the hair follicle for.
Well, the hair. You don't need the follicle.
Mm-hmm.
Hair testing, now that's not what we're talking about tonight, and it's not the same as mineral testing in the hair, but the hair is excellent for testing drugs. Not only can you find the drugs, but you can tell when the person used them, because the hair grows at a set rate.
Kind of like a tree.
Yes, and so if it's an inch into the hair, you know that, well, they used it about, maybe a month and a half ago or a month ago. It's so accurate that, and there's no way you can fake it, unlike urine tests, which are pretty easy to fake. And so, yes, it's used for that. It's also used for forensics, for DNA testing and other things. Mm-hmm. That's done very commonly, actually. But the way the mineral testing works is that the minerals are locked in there when the hair is formed. And so a 1-inch sample, which is what we use, an inch long, mm-hmm. gives us about 3 inches, 3 months of your life, inch and a half of hair, about 3 months of your life.
Now,
so it's an average of the minerals. And what the body does is if it wants to get rid of something, it will often deposit it in the hair because it knows that that's going to be cut off. See? And if you don't have enough of something in your body, that body will not allow it into the hair because it knows that if it gets into the hair, it's lost. And
so it'll be defective or it'll have an abundance depending on the imbalance.
Right, and so we can detect these things much earlier than blood tests.
That's great.
See, because blood touches everything and the body keeps it pretty normal. And you may know people that feel terrible and they go in for blood tests and the doctor says, well, everything's fine. Mm-hmm. Well, not really, but the blood stays normal until you're like on death's door often or near there. So the hair is much more sensitive. It's a more early warning system.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, well, that's important because today all these people are getting cancer and heart disease, and it's much easier if you can spot it earlier, and we can. We can spot the deficiencies and excesses.
These heavy metals that that are in a state of imbalance in many people's life,
Everybody.
Everybody.
It's very hard to breathe and eat today and not get this stuff.
Okay, so a lot of people are running around laden with all these heavy metals, and I want to say one of the sponsors of today's show is Dr. Detox. And Dr. Detox is an ionized foot bath that allows you to pull all these heavy metals right out of your body and regain a better, healthier state of balance. What do you think of these ionic foot baths, Dr. Larry?
I think they're good for some people. They're not good for everybody, I can tell you that.
Who aren't they good for?
Well, me, for one. I have one, actually. But after a month or two, it became clear that it wasn't good for me. It has to do with the way they work, and that really we could do another show on that.
Well, there's different types of those. Ours energize the body.
Yeah. So that's a whole other topic, but it does depend on the person.
Well, for myself, I have to say, the first time I did a detox bath, I used salt and vinegar, and sea salt and apple cider vinegar, and it pulled out all these heavy metals, and my water turned like the color of a dark iced tea.
Yeah.
And I was shocked, and it was real hot water, and I put in 2 cups of each, and that was what happened. And it pulled out so many heavy metals. And it's the same thing I've experienced with Dr. Detox when I've done the foot bath. And afterwards, I feel like my brain is working better. I'm less irritable, less, annoyed and easier. It's easier to sleep. A lot more relaxed feeling.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it could be that it's very good for you.
Yeah, it depends on, I think what you've got going on.
That's right.
And when most people get into it, the thing we notice when it's pulling out the toxins is like Gary was talking about it. He were doing some foot baths for people today about how it was like bubbling all up. The toxins were so.
Yes, you could tell by the coloration chart and certain signs in the water what to look for, like where areas of the body it's detoxing and what it's taking out. And for example, we had a recognizable coloration and bubbling in the water that indicated that this lady was using some kind of trans fat in her diet, and turns out it was some vegetable cooking oil that she was using.
Yeah. Well, there's thousands of chemicals and metals, and there's no test that detects them all, but everybody, most of the bodies are pretty out of balance. It's kind of sad when you do hair analysis, because even the little children are born, toxic metals pass right through the placenta. And we do hair testing on little babies, and it's very beneficial for them. They don't need many vitamins or anything, because then we recommend diet and supplements and lots of rest.
Well, I think that,
everywhere.
Something like Dr. Detox is great for pulling out a lot of those heavy metals that are in a
just
state
be careful with it. I can tell you it doesn't work for everybody.
In a state of, if you have a high level of heavy metals, though, it's really great to get them out, like I did, and everybody I've ever put on it.
Well, with the hair analysis, we focus more on balancing body chemistry. When you balance body chemistry, people's energy goes up. And
what do you do with
all
the heavy metals, though?
Well, energy is a common denominator of health. And if you can improve your energy, your liver starts working better, your kidneys start working better, everything starts working better, bowels. And the body has an ability to eliminate these things. But if people are too tired, then they don't eliminate very well anything. And so we find that the safest way to do things is if you can balance people's body chemistry, which is basically balancing the electrolytes, which is the big minerals in your body, calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. And then the body starts to eliminate all kinds of stuff, and it comes out all over the place. And
what do you mean it comes out all over the place?
Well,
you mean the chemicals?
I had a lady call,
the toxins?
It was coming out vaginally. It can come out in your tears, and your eyes can feel irritated. It can come out, of course, you can start sneezing a little or coughing, or you can get nauseous. You know what I mean? You can get diarrhea.
Or skin breakouts.
Or a breakout, yes, that's a real common one. Yes, so the body, depending on where it is and what it is, as it gets stronger and more balanced, and we have to replace the metals. You can't just pull toxic metals out unless you replace some of them. In other words, they are literally holding you together, some of them. They're replacement parts on a car. They're like replacement parts. You know, it's like if you couldn't get the right fan belt for your car and you took the belt off your body and you wrapped it around it. That's what the body does. If it runs out of a good mineral, it will take a bad mineral out of the environment or food, and it'll use that instead. And in order to replace it, it is important that you put in the good stuff. I don't know if you remember when Chernobyl blew up, that nuclear plant in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
They went around giving everybody iodine.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is because the radioactive plant threw a whole bunch of radioactive iodine into the air. And if your body's low in iodine, it will take up the iodine from the air. And that's the bad stuff. So they were giving people good iodine, meaning non-radioactive, so that they wouldn't do that. And that's a very big key for this mineral balancing, which is what we do using the hair analysis. We make sure people are getting the good minerals so that they will replace the bad ones. And one reason people pick up a lot of toxic metals is because their diets are low in the good minerals. If you eat refined food, you don't get many minerals. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So then you just take up that many more out of your food.
How do you recommend people get their minerals, the good minerals?
Well, the cheapest way is kelp. I mean, the most important thing is to eat good food. Organic food can have twice as much minerals as non-organic, and the food has
Which
to be...
foods organic do you think are the most important to eat organic? Let's see, which foods do you think are the most important out of all of them?
All. I would say the meats, because just don't know what you're getting these days. But vegetables also, and then a lot of fruit is sprayed heavily.
Mm-hmm. How about nuts? Do you think it matters?
You kind of have to use your intuition. I mean, if food looks terrible, even if it says organic on it, you know, it could be bad. And some of the supermarket food that isn't organic isn't bad. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If you go to a supermarket and you look over stuff, it's kind of it's not an easy situation. Actually, organic is a great step forward, but you know, we can't be at every farm to check on their methods, make sure they're doing it right. But you can supplement with sea salt, good quality sea salt, and you can supplement with kelp or dulse. These are very inexpensive mineral supplements.
Also, the Himalayan salt, they have found there's over 80-some elements of life force, that mineral aspects to that. They say that's one of the highest quality salts on the planet, because it's more of an organic rather than inorganic form, and it seems to be very, very good. It's been about 500 million years or something in the mountain there.
Yeah.
So that's good. A recent thing that people have gotten into, which I think is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the main thing is to eat that way consistently all the time, and not to eat the food that doesn't have any minerals, which is generally white flour, white sugar, most white rice, refined foods.
Yeah, I think like eating
table salt.
I think like eating organic potatoes and carrots and things like that come from the ground like that. You know,
well, you're right. The root vegetables are very rich, although we don't like potatoes too much. They're a nightshade family, and the nightshades can cause problems for many people.
In what way?
They cause joint pains for a lot of people. They're a little toxic, and also in Chinese terms, they're very yin. The nightshades are potato, tomato, eggplants, and peppers. But the roots are very rich foods. You're right. That's turnips, parsnips, rutabagas, carrots, onions.
Pumpkin squash.
And pumpkins are not, those are not roots. No. They grow on the ground.
Right.
They're not roots. And there are certain herbs like ginger, which is a root, garlic,
Well, ginger, from what I understand, can actually bolster the immune function, according to the Journal of Psychological Nursing and Mental Health Services.
Yeah, well, many herbs can do that, and it's all the minerals and the vitamins and the things that it contains. And people need to eat that food. They need to eat real food, whole food, and they need to do it consistently. And vegetables mostly need to be cooked. I don't recommend people just eat raw stuff.
You don't think a good big raw salad, a green salad, is good?
Well, the problem with that is there's a couple problems with raw food. One is that a lot of the food now comes from Mexico and Chile and all kinds of places, and people aren't necessarily clean. So it should be cleaned thoroughly. When you're in a restaurant, certainly you just don't know what they've done. You can pick up all kinds of parasites on raw food, bacteria.
Yeah. Well, if you
Another problem is that cooking concentrates the food. If you've ever cooked spinach, you know this. You know, a whole container of spinach cooks down into a little nothing.
Oh,
and that allows you to eat a lot more minerals. Nothing wrong with old spinach salad.
That's why I want to ask you. When you cook your broccoli or cauliflower or spinach or squash, are you destroying the minerals?
No. No, minerals are not destroyed at all. There are a few vitamins that are heat sensitive.
Okay, so your antioxidants are destroyed, though, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Your A, your C.
A is touched.
Your A is not touched.
No.
How
Vitamin C is heat sensitive, but if you steam things lightly, you know what I mean, you don't have to overcook anything. Even vitamin C, you'll get some vitamin C. And B vitamins are not touched.
So
They're
steaming is
How about
better,
E?
Though. Yes, steaming is low temperature cooking. Crock pots and steaming, those are gentle.
Well, not only is it better for the nutritional value to retain some of that would otherwise, be leached out in boiling it, but then
I
you're
have to
also
say something about steaming.
It tastes better too. It's than if it's all boiled away.
I think steaming is rather hot. And steam is very high. It's a very high temperature, actually. It has to boil first to make a steam. And, for the most part,
Well, it's still a lot cooler temperature than frying.
But yes, of course. But, I mean, cooking at a low temperature with very little water. And, I like even better than steaming, actually.
Well.
But because I do use a lower temperature.
How are you going to use a lower temperature?
Well, when you steam, you have to use a higher temperature.
I know, but what other methods are there? Because boiling, you're using 212.
Well, when you cook at a lower temperature, you can cook it a little longer and slower, and it'll have the same effect, like in a crock pot.
Temperature.
Like in a crock pot, like for example.
You'll boil things in a crock pot.
Well, if you cook it on high, yeah.
And stir frying is even higher anytime you use oil and stuff.
Yeah, that's
so let me ask you this.
So one more thing about raw food. The other thing is fiber. We do not digest fiber very well. We're not like a cow or a horse. They have 3 stomachs or 4 stomachs.
That's
they chew their cud, meaning they regurgitate it and chew it some more. And so cooking breaks down fiber, and that's very important to release all these nutrients. Otherwise, a lot of it can go right through you.
So let me ask you this: so if you're going to cook vegetables, is it wiser to bring it up slowly to a temperature that you would steam with the lid on with very little water, as Aurora mentioned, or would it be wiser to wait until after you bring it up to almost to a boil and then put it in?
I don't think it matters at all.
It wouldn't matter.
No.
Okay. All right.
No. But on the hair analysis, we see so many people who are just malnourished. We can read people's digestion. That's another thing that we read. It's a phosphorus reading. It has to do with protein utilization. And many people have gut problems, and they don't digest their food very well, no matter what they eat. Mm-hmm. So we usually give people a digestive aid for that reason.
Okay.
But that's another thing that we read. We can also read the ratios of the minerals tell us a lot about overdoing on carbohydrates, calcium-magnesium ratio, and that's a real common one, too. People eating too many carbohydrates.
How many carbs a day do you think somebody should eat?
Well, it depends. Slow metabolizers can eat more than the fast people. The fast metabolizers need more fat in their diet, and not carbs. They're the people who can handle like an Atkins-type diet better.
Well, there's other ways to get your dose of mineral supplements too, but the best that I understand is a liquid, and it's chelated minerals, and preferably with something that has selenium, correct?
Yeah, well, the best thing is food. The very best is to eat very well, and if you want to supplement it, you can do a little carrot juice or green juice, kelp, good quality sea salt, like Michael said.
Because I know when you detox,
I think that's better than any mineral supplements, including chelated.
But when you detox, you need to replace some of that, right?
Yeah, we do use chelated minerals in addition, but people think that, I'll just take all these pills, and then it doesn't matter what I eat.
I don't think that compares to live foods.
Well, real foods. They don't have to, when you say live, if they're raw, then most people can't digest them very well. So I don't go for raw food, but a little raw juice, green juice and carrot juice, that's fine.
Oh, juicing, you can never go wrong with that.
Yeah, in moderation. It's very yin. Chinese medicine, juice is extremely yin.
Now,
and remember, the bodies today are extremely yin. That's why we have a lot of mental illness. That's why we have all kinds of problems today. Extreme yin.
Too much sugar, in other words.
No. The main causes of extreme yin is toxic chemicals, which none of us can get away from, and ionizing radiation. That's leakage from power plants, atom bomb tests, and other, like medical x-rays and all that,
So we have two main characters that are wreaking havoc on our food supply. One is the depleted minerals that the foods are grown in the soil that have depleted minerals, and then what's to take place of the lack of these minerals that are depleted, then add the toxins that are in the place of them.
Yeah.
So we're getting at both ends.
Yeah, well,
so
you're right. The soil is depleted, and we have hybrid foods today, so they grow a lot more on the same acre, but the minerals are not. I mean, the minerals aren't there necessarily. You're right.
Organic is a little bit safer, I would.
It's a little bit better.
Yeah.
It leaves much to be desired in many cases, which is why.
And these GMO foods that are like Frankenstein foods, aren't they really hideous?
Well, that's another problem. That's the hybrids today that are.
Well, it's even more than hybrid. I mean, it's more than like making a nectarine out of a peach and a plum.
Yeah.
This is like taking it and molecularly altering it so that the seed companies, you can't even grow a seed from those seeds because they lack the life force. So I think it has to have the life force in some sense. I wanted to ask you, Larry, a question about vitamin supplements. Isn't it better for a person like every other day rather than doing them every single day? Doesn't the body build up like a tolerance or they get so used to it? Don't you need the body to have a little bit of space between that so they get a little bit able to utilize it better?
That's a good question. I would say it's not true necessarily. For example, if you're deficient in something, you should be taking that until you're filled up. You know what I mean? Until you're back up to normal.
Yeah, I understand
that. You'll take it in. I mean, the body knows what it wants, and you won't develop a tolerance to it just because, assuming you need it, you won't develop a tolerance to it.
I see. So it all depends on your need, really.
Yeah. If you don't need it, the body will not take as much.
That's why moderation is important.
You can certainly overdo it on anything.
Do you see
Remember
a lot of people?
Minerals compete in your body, in your intestines.
When you take a multivitamin and mineral complex, how balanced would you be on the meter if you're eating fairly well, you're eating a pretty good diet,
I never know what that means.
Well, you're eating.
Some people, that means, I only eat ice cream every other night.
Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, whole grains, organic type meats and wild fishes and things like that.
As opposed to a steady diet of fast food, for example.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a medium diet because actually there's another concept that I work with.
That's a medium diet? What was wrong with it?
Well, there's a concept that I'm working with now, and it has to do with the etheric energy of food. Yeah. It's not a new concept, really. It's an old concept, but it isn't taught very much. I don't see it in books. And there's certain foods that are very high in this energy. It's a life energy, and the grains are actually very high. The meat is the highest, meat and eggs, but you can't live on that. And so the grain is a food that you can eat more of. Vegetables have some, And then certain foods are very low in this energy, and it has to do with fruits are very low, fish is mostly low, and things like beans are not very high either. And so people who are eating a lot of that kind of stuff, and then, of course, fish has this mercury problem, all fish. And so people think they're eating well and they're eating a lot of fish. I mean, when we see their hair tests, oh, my God, their mercury levels are very high. And that's from eating a lot of fish, even if it's wild fish.
Well, what's this etheric energy that you are talking about?
How is it measured, and how
is it measured?
Yeah.
Well, right now, my guides tell me about it, actually, but there are people who can measure that kind of stuff. I don't know how they do it. Actually, it's more of an intuitive thing, and it's been known for ages. For example, it's not an accident that corn was the staple food of the Indians, and rice, staple food of the Chinese people, and wheat was a staple food in the Middle East, and it still is. People have figured out that these foods possess an energy, and I don't have there's probably some equipment, some instruments that could measure it. Fresh food, of course, is higher as a general rule than food that's been cooked, particularly, and left.
Well, I know that all living organisms emit an electromagnetic signature. Mm-hmm. So what you're talking about perhaps resides in the spectrum of what we consider an electromagnetic signature.
Yeah, but it's not about, I can tell you, it's not about like living foods, because, and I learned this when I studied macrobiotics with Michio Kushi, who taught, the ancient Japanese kind of way of eating. And that is that cooking the rice, for example, raises its energy and increases its life force energy. I took their cooking stuff, and the cooking actually increases the energy. Now, if you overcook
how's that measured?
Well, I don't know how they did it. It was an ancient system. I know how my guidance tells me to do it, and they'll tell me. They'll say, okay, that's enough cooking, and then they'll say it's too much. And usually you can tell, because the vegetables get kind of like bright green, and then if you keep on cooking them, they start getting real dull and limp.
Yeah.
And you can kind of tell. Same with carrots. You cook them, I steam them, and they kind of soften up, and but their color maintains pretty well. And then if I overcook them, they start getting real gooey and soft and dull. Uh-huh.
Well, Dr. Larry, you also mentioned another thing about minerals. If you don't practice moderation, you can have these minerals in your body competing with one another.
Yes, all minerals compete.
How is that so?
You have mineral transporters in your intestines, and so when you eat something with calcium in it, or potassium, or zinc, manganese, in your intestines, it has to hook on to a transporter to be transported in. And the same transporter transports iron and copper and zinc, for example. And so if you eat, for example, white bread, which has lots of iron because they put iron in, but it doesn't have any of the other minerals because they take it all out, it all goes to these transporters, and you get a huge dose of iron, which, by the way, gives you a little lift. Probably one reason people like white bread. But when you eat a balanced food, the minerals do actually compete a little bit with each other. For example, meats and vegetarian proteins are high in copper, both of them. Liver is very high in copper, but the meat has zinc in it. And so what the zinc does is it competes with the copper, and it prevents the body from absorbing a lot of copper, whereas the vegetarian proteins, there's no zinc there to speak of, so you absorb a lot more copper. And that can be said of many foods. They have different minerals, and all the minerals compete, and so you get a balance usually.
So in a sense, it's very prudent to practice having a good balanced diet because of that.
It is, unless you want to alter body chemistry very specifically, but then you need some kind of test. You have to know what you're doing. That's why we do the hair test. Because if we give someone zinc or copper or iron or something, we're doing it for a specific reason. And we do it for a limited amount of time, limited quantity. So it is a problem if people just decide, I just need to take this forever.
So that's the best way to measure where your imbalances are, and so you can come up with a good remedy to correct it.
It's not perfect. There's no perfect way.
Right. But it'll
it'll
improve the quality of your life and your health. Exactly.
Now, I can tell you there's certain minerals that are so deficient and so important right now, like selenium, that if you wanted to take that all the time, a little bit, 100, 200 micrograms, even more, maybe 300 micrograms, it would probably be fine. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I notice when you look at a liquid electrolytes, for example, the price jumps considerably when they have selenium in it.
Yeah, which is silly. It's not really a very expensive mineral. I mean, it's not a fancy thing. Garlic has a bunch of selenium in it.
Garlic, oh yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
But my guidance is that the planet Earth is moving from an iron-based blood to a selenium and silicon-based blood, and the selenium is very important right now. Selenium is also needed for liver detoxification, which everybody's liver is kind of clogged up today with poisons, and selenium is needed for your thyroid gland, and that's another issue today for many people.
Yes, it is.
So selenium is an important one, like zinc, which the soil is deficient in zinc, and to some degree selenium too.
Yeah, you have
people
thyroid
are not getting
problems.
enough.
That can be lethal.
Yeah, and when you are under stress, you use up these minerals. And the hair test can tell us things like acute stress, or if there's just a lot of chronic stress. It can also tell us a lot of psychological information about people. Believe it or not, there are patterns for frustration, resentment.
What is a pattern for frustration or resentment?
Low sodium to potassium ratio.
And
it has to do with your adrenal glands.
So if your potassium's too low, you're saying usually is the case?
Well, your adrenal glands are the fight or flight glands. And if you're frustrated and resentful, you tend to wear those things out. And there's a particular pattern. The sodium-potassium ratio inverts, gets too low, and it shows up.
That's
just
interesting.
Like anger, you're usually overusing your adrenals because, again, they're your fight or flight glands, and that shows up as a high ratio, sodium to potassium. And I used to think that was crazy, that you couldn't, that's silly to think you could see that in a piece of hair.
So what do you do to remediate that?
You just give things that, if it's too high, zinc tends to lower it, for example, and other minerals tend to raise it. And this was developed from soil science, that certain minerals affect other minerals in the body, affect other things. And a guy named Albrecht, University of Missouri, came up with the mineral system in the body and how the body balances it out as best it can, and how if you give one mineral, it tends to raise other ones, and it tends to lower other minerals. And the guy that I worked with, that I interned with, Paul Eck, he developed this more based on the hair testing and people's responses. For example, if you want to raise calcium, you take more copper. And copper helps fix calcium in your body. So that's an example.
But don't a lot of people have too much copper?
They do. That's right.
And a lot of people are low in calcium, so how do you figure?
Their calcium level in their tissues is too high. That's one of the tip-offs, that they have too much copper. And if you want to bring down their calcium, we bring down their copper.
What about somebody who has what are diagnosed as spongy bones?
You mean osteoporosis?
Well, just like you know how you go over there to those tests that they do at the women's fair and everything, and they say, "Oh, you're a bad score, you're a good score."
Right. Yeah. That's osteopenia or osteoporosis.
Okay.
Osteopenia is like a mild case.
Okay.
And it's pretty common.
Okay. And so, what can you do to fill in those holes in the bone?
Well, there's different causes. The fast metabolizers, they lose calcium because it's the body's way of getting in a fight mode, believe it or not. Calcium tends to calm you down. Maybe you know that. People take it before bed to go to sleep. People used to drink warm milk.
Can you hurt yourself taking it?
Not too bad, especially if you take magnesium with it.
Okay.
Because calcium and magnesium should be in balance.
What is the balance ratio? Do you feel it's good? 2 to 1, I hear.
2 to 1 is not bad. Certainly some people need more magnesium.
Yeah.
And it won't hurt if someone wants to try more magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people will feel dramatically better.
It's good for people who are...
And there's not very much magnesium in your food today.
I think calcium and magnesium is very good for people who are anxiety prone.
Yes.
Who are hyper types.
That's right. So that's what I was saying. People who are in a fight mode all the time, they tend to dump off calcium and magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that enough, you'll end up with osteoporosis. You just dump out a lot of calcium, and and don't replace it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other kind of people.
How should you get your calcium? What's
that's
the best
the problem today.
How's your best way of getting it into the bod?
Well, I would say the best way is often with root vegetables like carrots. They're a very good source of calcium.
And you can cook them and it won't hurt.
Yeah, actually it helps. It helps because it breaks down the fiber and makes it the calcium more available.
Okay.
Almonds are pretty good. Almond butter. Trouble with almonds, the nuts, is you have to chew them very well.
Well, almond butter's pretty good.
Yeah, the butter is much easier. Milk would be good if it was unpasteurized.
Can the nuts, do you think it's okay to cook the nuts?
Almonds are best toasted, according to my guidance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, other nuts, not necessarily, but almonds, yes.
What about the oil, though, in the nut when you roast it? Doesn't it become carcinogenic?
Well, I think if it's done correctly, the answer is no, it doesn't. And
Do you think oils can be heated?
Well, actually, it's nice to have raw oils in your diet too.
Yeah.
Either fish oil or coconut oil. But anyway, there aren't too many sources of calcium.
What do you recommend for most people? What are some of the
that's what
carrots?
I said. Carrots, root vegetables are very good.
All right.
Turnips.
Okay.
Are pretty good. Now, you have to eat a fair amount, but those are good to eat a lot.
Well,
and then
I have
like
a great
butter,
soup I should share with you.
And organic dairy. I mean, you can get some calcium, but when they pasteurize it and homogenize it, it's not as available. I'll tell you another great source of calcium, bone soup. After you eat a chicken or something, you save the bones and just put some water in it, and you leave it overnight.
Yeah, I do that for the dog.
Yeah. Well, there's a book about that, and this guy...
You kind of boil them, though, a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, you boil them.
Yeah.
You're giving all the goodies to Pooh Bear.
Yeah.
Leave them on the stove overnight. And there was this guy, Weston Price, and he has these x-rays.
And then it's good to make chicken soup with and stuff.
Yes, but it's actually the broth in this case.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You use the broth to make other things with.
He was able to regrow bone in people's mouth, and all he gave the people was good quality butter, which is also it's just
organic
good fat,
butter, yeah,
and bone soup. This was during the Depression, and these were orphan kids. They didn't have much money.
Uh-huh.
And that's what he fed them. He fed them whole wheat buns, and he fed them bone soup and good butter. And he was able to fill in cavities.
Oh, wow.
Pretty amazing. Wow. I haven't been able to do that, but that's what he did.
Now, speaking of calcium, there's another thing called calcification, and usually when it appears in the body, it's a good indication that your organs could be in trouble. What is calcification? What causes that?
Yeah, that shows up on a hair analysis all the time. The calcium starts going up in the hair, and it's like your hair is calcifying, and you know that everything is calcifying. Your joints and your arteries calcifying, your brain is calcifying, and it's a cause of memory loss and all that stuff. And basically what that is you can't keep your calcium in solution. You know, calcium is it's a divalent mineral. That means it has 2 little electrons, and it has to be kept soluble. For example, in Arizona, we tend to get calcium buildup on our pipes, right? Have you ever noticed that on your faucet? It happens up here in the mountains because we have a lot of calcium in the water. Mm-hmm. It's called hard water. Mm-hmm. And the key to getting rid of it is sodium and potassium. And people put something on their house called a water softener. And the water softener is nothing more than a tank, and you fill it up with salt pills or potassium pellets. And it gets rid of calcium deposits. And in the body, the adrenal glands maintain sodium and potassium. And so the people who have calcification have weak adrenals. That's a quick answer.
Well, Dr. Larry, I have learned so much once again talking to you, and it's just really been a pleasure having you on. I've learned a lot about hair analysis. And
my pleasure, because you can see so much of this on hair tests.
Okay.
That's nice.
Anyway. One of the things I'd like to say is that, I have personally consulted you, Dr. Larry, and always found you to be a person who has a lot of insight and compassion. And those of you out there who are looking for some hair analysis to be done for you, don't hesitate to contact Dr. Larry at Dr. Dr. Wilson, WILSON.com. And a phone number do you want to give out to, Dr. Larry?
Okay. 928-445-7690.
Oh, and I want to mention thank you, Dr. Larry, for being here with us again.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I can't wait to have you back again. So, also, Dr. Larry has some near-infrared saunas. We've been using it, Gary and I. We really like it.
Oh,
and, check them out, too, as well. And I think we did a show about those one time, so they're archived. Those of you who are listening to this show, you can check at Healthy Habits one of the past shows there. You'll see something up there in the archive section. Thank you again.
Okay.
And I want to thank our sponsors here today and mention that we have a couple of events coming up. We have one coming up at New Visions in Scottsdale, Arizona on the third Wednesday of each month, and that is for people who are interested in higher consciousness and developing more insight into metaphysics and spirituality. And that's headed by Michael L. Jean, who has the Cosmic Consciousness Connection. He's part of the Vortex Network lineup. And then all three of us, Gary Voss, who has the Progressive Technology Hour, and Michael L. Jean and myself will be in Los Angeles on February 8th, 9th, and 10th, I think it is. And that's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 2008. And we will be there, and Michael will be speaking on human-appearing extraterrestrials, and Gary will be speaking on progressive technologies that are going to be entering our arena here in the near future. And so we'll also have a booth there. We'll be in booth 408, and Michael will be doing personal counseling sessions for people. Yeah, if they want to learn more about it, you can go to tap-10.org, and Gary Voss will have his information up there on where he's going to be in Los Angeles, or you can go to channelforthemasters.com. Is your information up there yet, Michael?
On that event, not yet, but it will be.
Okay, all right. He's going to get it up there. All right, I want to thank both of you guys for being here with us today. Gary Voss from the Progressive Technology Hour. Stay tuned for that next. And thank you for being with us today. I'm Aurora Light, and we'll be here with you again next week. Have a great week.
Steve Marshall from Interviews with Kimmy and Steve, and you are listening to AchieveRadio.com. It is the positive side of broadcasting.
Whole Life Pages comes to you live. You've been asking for it, and now you've got it. Every Friday at 3 p.m. The country's largest, most comprehensive directories to natural, holistic, and alternative therapies and resources. Harmon and John LaMarca, publishers of the Whole Life Pages directories, will give you the opportunity to meet the who's who and learn the what's what in these fields. They'll cover topics such as chelation therapy, nutrition, energy work, children's programs, animal health, coaching, healthy eating, oxygen therapies, feng shui, and healing alternatives. They'll bring to light environmental projects and awareness, the truth in medicine, and speak with schools that offer alternative education and training. Our goal at Whole Life Pages is to provide you the tools through which you can be empowered to positively affect change in your life and in the lives of others every Friday at 3 p.m.
When you open your mind, you can hear with your soul. All your heart can behold.
Spirit Connections is a weekly journey investigating and sharing spiritual topics. We'll help you become aware of how the spiritual worlds connect with us all daily and how to safely access that guidance. Each week, a variety of guests will share how they connect to Spirit and enlighten us with their insights. Experts in all areas of spirituality will share their wisdom, as well as what's new in the media pertaining to spiritual consciousness. Now is the time to find your inner spiritual strength. Let us offer logical answers to your questions into the unknown. Knowledge is power, and the way to find your own spirit connection.
Still it calls from the deep.
Hidden deep within you is an unstoppable power. If you want to deepen your relationships, supercharge your productivity, and enjoy more life energy than you've felt in years, then visit LetNothingStopYou.org to learn more about Secrets of Being Unstoppable by Guy Finley. This new audio program will give you the knowledge you need to enjoy the happiness and success your heart longs for. That's Guy Finley's Secrets of Being Unstoppable at LetNothingStopYou.org.
Hello, this is Gordon Wilson of Believing is the Quest, Trust is the Key. You're listening to Achieve Radio, the positive side of broadcasting.